The turnout for street rallies continues to hit new highs as more people gather in protest of the massive power abuse scandal. The president addresses the nation once again. While political turmoil still hangs over the country, external economic risks are also mounting. What are the prospects for the Korean economy? All this right ahead. Welcome to News Inside. I'm An Jung-hyun. Let's meet our panelists. Professor Shin Sang-yup from Kyung University Graduate School of International Studies is back with us, as is Dr. Bong Young-sik from Yonsei University Institute for North Korean Studies. Welcome back. President Park Geun-hye addressed the nation for the third time this week in the midst of a lengthy prosecution investigation into the abuse of power scandal. We'll look at the details of the address and what it means for the current administration in the coming days.
Korea's political front has seen endless turbulence for about a month now. President Park Geun-hye this week addressed the nation for a third time.
여야 정치권이 논의하여 국정의 혼란과 공백을 최소화하고 안정되게 정권을 이양할 수 있는 방안을 만들어 주시면 그 일정과 법 절차에 따라 대통령 측에서 물러나겠습니다.
In response, the ruling Saenuri Party said the president has accepted demands from the public and pushed to suspend actions for impeachment. Those outside of the core circles argued the president should enter term early in April. The two main opposition parties, the Minju Party and the People's Party, although showing some differences in opinion, are still pushing to impeach the president. Meanwhile, one day ahead of the president's third nationwide address, her lawyer announced it would be difficult for the president to take part in the prosecution investigation in person due to other pressing matters. This means the probe into President Park on the alleged involvement in the Chae Soon-sil scandal will be left to an independent counsel.
This third presidential address came somewhat unexpectedly, maybe a little earlier than expected. What were your thoughts?
Well, personally, I think it was acceptable because in her speech, she clearly said she will resign before her terms ends. But as you know very well, her term ends in the February 2018, so about 15 months is left. Well, everything has two sides, but I want to take the positive side rather than the negative side this time.
The downside is that she wasn't really clear about her admitting the involvement in the allegations of the Ms. Chae Soon-sil and the close aides. But at the same time, as a private citizen and a person, she has good reasons to try to defend herself as an innocent victim of the scandal, because everybody, including president, is entitled with the due process of law and the basic principle that nobody is guilty until proven guilty. But the timing is the third apology was not really surprising because the impeachment bill, it was to be submitted to the National Assembly with a target date of the December 2nd. So the apology has the effect to postpone the actual submission of the bill.
But what does it mean that she would leave it all up to the National Assembly to decide her fate?
Well, can we just take her letters of apology as they are, that she would step down according to the procedures that will be decided by the National Assembly.
But under the current constitution, the National Assembly has no way to shorten the president's term.
No, there are two ways.
Other than impeaching her.
No, right.
Or revising the constitution.
You got it right. You got it right. But given the reality that it takes more than a year to revise the high school and junior high school history textbooks.
Right.
And they turn out to be still subject to a lot of criticisms and problems. And you're talking about revising constitution. So given the reality of the amount of time, then I don't think it will be a realistic solution available to the National Assembly. That is the reason why President Park was immediately under attack by the critics, that this is another evasive tactic.
But, well, a few days ago, already Park Geun-hye appointed special prosecutor.
일체의 사실관계에 대한 명백한 규명에 초점을 두고 수사 영역을 한정하거나 대상자의 지휘고하를 고려하지 않을 것입니다.
And then according to the announcement delivered by the spokesman of the Blue House, the president promised to cooperate with the investigation.
대통령께서는 본격적인 특검의 수사가 시작되면 적극적으로 협조하고 특검의 직접 조사에도 응해서 사건 경위에 대해서 설명할 예정입니다.
I think then maybe that can be one of the factors changing the situation a little bit favorable for the President Park Geun-hye.
Well, with the latest developments in mind, we'll look at what possibilities lie ahead for the president in the coming months.
Opinions remain divided within political circles on the roadmap for President Park Geun-hye's resignation. The ruling party has said a constitutional amendment should be made, which would allow an early resignation from the president. This would not only require an overarching agreement within Parliament, but also a national referendum. Senior lawmakers have proposed an orderly transition of power, saying President Park should step down in April and hold an early presidential election within the following 60 days. The opposition Minju Party and People's Party have agreed on an impeachment and are still pushing for a vote. With the backing of 151 lawmakers, the motion can be presented to Parliament. Currently, the opposition bloc holds 172 seats. In order for the impeachment bill to pass, it would need to secure 28 votes from the ruling Saenuri Party. If the bill is passed with a 2/3 majority vote, the president is suspended of her authority. The Constitutional Court is then required to rule within the next 180 days based on the impeachment motion and results from the prosecution investigation. If it upholds the decision, the next president will be elected within 60 days.
So, Dr. Bong, what do you see as some outstanding variables for this issue to be resolved?
There will be the response of the public to the third apology by the President Park. This weekend is going to be a very critical juncture to put additional pressure on the National Assembly with regard to the impeachment bill. But as Professor Shin mentioned, that if the apology by President Park would generate some ameliorating effect on those so-called shy Park supporters who might believe that enough is enough. She did promise to step down. Now the ball is in the court of the National Assembly to propose to the Blue House about how to carry out so-called honorable and smooth withdrawal from the office. So let's wait and see, rather than just escalate the tension by engaging the public demonstration. It is time to wait for the National Assembly and the Blue House to be more responsible to take care of the current scandals and political turmoils. We, as ordinary citizens, are not supposed to take the street every weekend to register the general will of people. That goes against the very basic principle of representative democracy and party politics.
Well, even if the National Assembly passes the impeachment bill, the final decision still lies with the Constitutional Court.
Definitely,
and
right.
Right now, there's no telling which way they
There's
will
no
rule.
telling. There is no telling, and we have to remember several important points. One, the passage of the impeachment bill at the National Assembly by and of itself does not conclude that the president has been impeached. That's only beginning of the impeachment process.
Right.
And the process will be moved to be in the hands of the Constitutional Court.
Meanwhile, she will be relieved of her presidential duties.
Right, but she will be staying in the Blue House, the residential area. Two, the Constitutional Court can use 180 days to deliberate and reach the ruling on the impeachment of the sitting president. So it can be an extremely prolonged process. Think about 6 months. 6 months is a long time. Anything can happen in 6 months. and the public response to the scandals can easily change in response to whatever newly discovered the scandals by the special prosecutors. For whatever reasons, the Constitutional Court will decide against the impeaching president, then the public anger has to find alternative conduit about the scandals and the responsibility of the president. The president herself will be off the hook legally. That's the legal justice. The problem is that whether the crimes that will be specifically included in the impeachment bill submitted by the parties at the National Assembly will constitute so-called significant breach of the Constitution and law. We have the previous case, the impeachment of President Nomu현 in 2008, and the main ground for the Constitutional Court rule against the impeachment of President Roh was that the crime and the allegation that President Roh himself actually admitted failed to constitute significant breach of the Constitution and law. So the bar is extremely high for the president to be impeached. Whatever reasons, the Constitutional Court finds that the case is insufficient to impeach the president, then all hell will break loose, and the National Assembly will be another target of public frustration, protest, and anger.
Yeah, well, if you remember, though, in the case of ex-President Nomu현, the public opinion was against impeachment at the time. Whether the Constitutional Court ruling takes that into account in earnest or not, we don't know. But
so, I mean, there is a legal aspects of this impeachment process and the political and emotional aspect of the impeachment process. And this time, the impeachment process deliberation in the Constitutional Court will take far longer time than the previous case, because at that time, all the facts of the case was reasonably well established. But this time, the Constitutional Court has to go back to the drawing board and investigate President's office and its potential involvement in the scandals.
Yeah, and the investigations themselves, whether by prosecutors or by special prosecutors, are just beginning anyway. So what happened to this talk of constitutional revision that seemed to be gaining traction when the scandal first broke?
I personally, well, the revision of the Constitution should be discussed at the same time to discuss about the impeachment of the president.
In tandem.
In tandem, yes. Because they, well, there are some critics, because that if they started to discuss about revision of Constitution, it will take a time. So even they criticize that is a kind of delaying tactic, which President Park Geun-hye is going to use. But I think I want to underline the one point. Why we have such a kind of the influence peddling scandal at the moment? Because of the too powerful, the presidency, and then I think that's one of the main direct causes for the situation we have. If that is a situation, even though the ruling, the very strong candidates, not only from the ruling party but also the opposition party, particularly from the opposition party presidential candidate, they do not want to see the change of the revision of the Constitution. But when you think about the long-term perspectives about the Korean prosperity, definitely I think that we have to discuss about the revision of the Constitution as well as the impeachment proceedings at the same time. I want to quote one of the oldest sayings: "Well beginning is half done." What I mean is that then if we delay the discussion about the revision of the Constitution right now, from when we will be able to discuss? We will have the new president, then we have to wait another 5 years, and who knows what will happen after 5 years. I think so even though the situation we have is not very favorable or not very pleasant, but I think we have to use this opportunity as one of the chances for us to discuss about revision of constitution.
More than lack of time, partisan differences will pose an even greater challenge for discussions of constitutional revision.
And I suspect there are not many who would dare to lead the movement in favor of constitutional revision in this juncture with regard to the public criticism against any action that would digress from impeaching the president and holding President Park accountable.
So rationally, it would make sense to pursue both tracks at the same time, but
Well, it is good if we can catch two birds with a stone, but
realistically, it seems
right.
difficult.
But how about, I have this kind of thought. Yes, at the moment we don't have enough time. But at least both parties agreed on the start of talk about the revision of the Constitution. If they set some time schedule agreed by both sides, well, I think that's enough.
Yeah. Thus, what spurred political parties into action is the public, with the number of protesters attending weekend rallies reaching new highs for about a month now. The mass movement has also received a lot of attention worldwide.
Following the eruption of the influence peddling scandal, citizens have been coming together in Gwanghwamun Square in the heart of Seoul every weekend. On November 26th, the protest is said to have drawn in the largest number of participants since the 1980s Democratic Uprising. Organizers say an estimated 1.9 million people nationwide came together to protest. The fifth weekend rally drew a lot of attention from foreign media as well, with a lot of focus being placed on the orderly nature of it. The New York Times called it peaceful and almost festive.
이 평화로운 시위가 지속이 되면 전 국민이 어린아이 할 것 없이 다 참여할 수가 있는데 이 평화로운 시위가 지속되지 않고 혹시 폭력적으로 변한다거나 그렇게 되면은 많은 국민들이 함께 할 수는 없을 것 같아요.
The BBC took note of the fact that over 25,000 police were deployed, but not a single case of violence was reported. People remained calm and orderly, even putting floral stickers on police barricades that had been set up. The following day, the area showed no trace of a mass gathering having been held. Hundreds of thousands of people picked up after themselves, cleaning the streets before leaving. Political unrest continues in the country, but the Korean public has responded with peaceful and non-violent measures. How political leaders will respond to the public's demands will now be closely watched.
It seems we have a new culture of protest in place now.
Yes, definitely. Well, when I heard about the street protest, I thought, well, it could be violence. There must be violence.
Molotov cocktails,
yeah,
tear
right,
gas,
exactly.
reminiscent of the 80s.
Yeah, so when my students, when they said they would go to Gwanghwamun, I said, don't go there, it's quite dangerous. But after seeing the 5 times street protest, I even personally, I was very surprised. Definitely, well, through the 5 times the large size, the street protest, definitely we can see the changes of the so-called the protest culture. Then I got one question: how it was possible? Well, I think certainly the people's, what can I say, the basic the quality or way of thinking, we can say that they have been matured over the last several years. So it can be one of the very valuable assets for us to keep our democracy in our country. But one thing which I really are a little bit concerned about is that, always the public is not the number one actor in the democratic system. That means that we have many sayings by the former politicians or philosophers. Well, I think their contribution is very important, but they should not have such a, they should not think that they can do everything. So I think this is kind of some warning point which I'm really concerned about by seeing the large size demonstrations this time.
Yes, we've seen some iconic movements in other countries as well, and I guess we have our differences from theirs, and that is why the global media is paying so much attention on our
Right.
values.
It was in good comparison with other mass protests in other countries in the past, including Arab Spring or the Tiananmen Square demonstration in 1989. And we have other cases in our own political history since 1970s.
Right.
And this is a really peaceful, well-organized demonstration. It's very successful in terms of articulating the core message, which is that President's office should take due responsibility for the scandals. But at the same time, I like to single out some negative aspect of this very proud phenomenon. Well, the question is that where's the beef in the burger commercial? Then where's the party? Citizens are not supposed to spend their time
Well, they
taking
shouldn't have
stages.
to.
They shouldn't have to. That is exactly why we have elections to send people to National Assembly to aggregate and duly represent the people's will and interest. The growth of NGO activities and enlarged participation of normal citizens have some positive elements. At the same time, that's very painful and negative manifestation of failure of party politics. Political parties not doing their jobs. National Assembly failing to take control of this process.
Well, as I said earlier, it's the public that is spurring the political parties on at this
Right.
point.
Right.
Yeah.
So when people go up, political parties go down.
Definitely.
And this is not a healthy symptom of mature democracy based upon party politics.
Well, coming back to the issue at hand, what do you think the country can do to minimize this power void?
Well, the President Park Geun-hye lost her leadership as the president of Korea. So we have to restore the leadership. To do that, the politicians, they should have to discuss about the selecting the new leader, new prime minister. Well, we have to we have to think about the recommendation they're made by the seniors who were former speakers of National Assembly and prime ministers. According to their recommendation, president should be resigned until the April, and during this period, politicians should have to prepare for the new leadership. Prime minister under his or her the leadership. They should have to prepare for the presidential election, which will be very important for the future of the Korean politics as well as Korean economy. So I think this is kind of some roadmap which we have to take it very seriously.
I'd like to add some legal technicality in this discussion. Time is running out. President Park is left with only about a week to decide how she can take so-called honorable and smooth step down resignation, because according to the Constitution, once impeachment bill is passed at the National Assembly, the president's right to govern will be suspended. Then it will become impossible for the president to step down or resign, because the function of presidency will suspended right at the point of the passage of the impeachment bill at the National Assembly.
So we're looking at a longer power vacuum.
Right. So she has until December 9th before the National Assembly will pass the impeachment bill if she is really serious about honorable resignation.
One area that requires immediate attention is the economy. Despite facing a lot of potential policy shifts from the U.S. with an incoming Trump administration, Korea remains bogged down by this political unrest. How will it affect the economy? Here's a look at some of the looming risks.
Donald Trump wins the U.S. presidential election. The Federal Reserve is poised to raise rates. And a local political scandal roils the nation. These are just a few of the current uncertainties facing the Korean economy. How do the country's economic leaders see the country overcoming the current challenges? Finance Minister Yoo Il-do said Trump's victory may have added uncertainties, but also emphasized it can bring about new opportunities. The Financial Services Commission Chairman Im Jong-yong said that although there are concerns of rising rates due to the effects from the U.S., Korea will take strong countermeasures if necessary. Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol has called on the financial sector to remain calm, citing the resilience of local markets. Global ratings agencies so far have also kept their outlook for the Korean economy at stable. Moody's recently said despite the power abuse scandal, Korea's ratings remain at where it is due to strengths in the economy, its institutions, and fiscal policies. But preparations still need to be made in the face of a number of risk factors. The Bank of Korea, for the first time in 8 years, offered to purchase government bonds as a means of market stabilization. The Finance Ministry has also announced public institutions will hire some 20,000 workers next year in order to help alleviate the youth unemployment problem. As conditions change rapidly on the economic front, we look at how Korea can ensure it's well prepared for a potentially rough road ahead.
So there are a lot of uncertainties ahead with the new U.S. president coming in and the Tristan Chu scandal still unfolding. Will they prove to be positive or negative factors for the economy?
The uncertainty in the global economy itself is a kind of some threats to the Korean economy. And the newly elected president of the United States, Mr. Trump, he emphasized returning to the protectionism in the U.S. trade policy. The U.S. will quit the TPP, and then also they discuss about some actions against the Chinese the financial policies, and on the top of the very protectionist trade policy against the Chinese government, and some measures financial measures, it will step up this pressure on the Chinese economy. Then Chinese economy will be slowed down. Already the Chinese economy has been slowed down over the several 2 or 3 years. And then, as I explained already very briefly, out of the total Korean exports, 25% the exports goes to the China. And then the another 25% exports, Korean exports, will go to countries which have very close economic ties with China. So slowdown of Chinese economy means slowdown of these countries' economy. So presumably about 50% Korean exports will be slowed down, affected because of the slowdown of Chinese economy. And then USA has been one of the major trading partners for Korea. Then USA economies will be more protectionistic one. That means that Korean exports to USA will be also slowed down. So this is one of the problems. But I think, as I told you before, there must be some still hope. That means that we have overcome the several crises over the several decades. At the time, the cooperation between the government and private sector, the public, have been very essential for us to overcome the financial crisis. So urgently we have to restore the leadership, the government. Considering this kind of situation, definitely politicians should have to have some negotiations to let the government appoint a new finance minister. At the same time, if such a kind of leadership in economic sector in Korea, definitely the government can defend our economy very efficiently, despite of the emerging threats around the world.
Well,
Right.
at least for this political scandal, global ratings agencies don't seem to think it's going to make too big an impact on the
Right.
economy, or
Right.
at least Korea's sovereign credit
Right.
ratings.
Right. The Moody's maintained the credit rating of South Korea at the current level, AA2. And some people may be surprised by this decision by Moody's, but it is a testimony that the fundamentals of South Korean economy and the financial market are basically sound. And what is surprising to the observers of South Korean economy is that, yes, the country has been going through probably one of the biggest and the most complicated political scandals in recent years, but the way the people, government, and the National Assembly and the media as well have been dealing with the political turmoil have been extremely measured, rational, and peaceful. The way that Koreans have been dealing with and the responding to the turmoil has been quite impressive enough for the outside investors and credit rating agencies to remain optimistic about the long-term future of South Korean financial market and economy.
As Dr. Wong well explained, the foreign medias and foreign experts give high credits on the potentiality of the Korean private sector as well as the Korean publics. Well, many economists they explain the relationship between Korean government and private sector. In the past, the relation was like the parents and babies. But right now, the Korean private sector became youngsters, like in the 20s and the 30s, depending on the enterprises. Maybe they have different ages. That means spectrums about the relationship between the government and the private sector have been changed. That means that government should have to respect the voices from the private sector, and the private sector has some potentiality. That means that to overcome the current situation, current crisis, definitely the cooperation between the government and the private sector seems to be very important.
Now, one wild card that we have to pay attention as an extension of your thoughtful comment is that when corporations are embroiled against their wills in political scandals, then they cannot really make a long-term investment or strategic plans, because there are so much political uncertainties that corporations are not entirely free from. Good example is Samsung. Just when, there's a scene in The Godfather 3 that Al Pacino saying that just when I think I could wash my hands, they pull me back into it. Right? And that might be the outcry of Samsung these days. Just when we think that we wash our hands from the Galaxy Note 7 scandal, they pulled me back in this scandal so that we cannot really make important personal decisions, reshuffling the CEO level positions and any strategic new investment.
If I give you more details, definitely there have been many reports. The private sector has a huge amount of money in their pockets, but they do not spend it. That means they do not make a decision whether and when they are making investment.
Yeah, who would? In terms of
I think the role of the government seems to be very important. As you explained already, the situation should be changed. The relationship between the government and private sector should be changed. Let them make investment. That's very important. By making them invest in some infrastructure, definitely that can be a start of the efforts to overcome the difficulties facing us.
Well, we keep talking about concern over the Trump administration's protectionist trade policies to come, but could some of these new policies present opportunities for growth as well?
Yes, there must be. Current the finance minister and then trade minister, they empathize there are some opportunities, even though new president of the United States will be inaugurated. And as a candidate, Mr. Trump emphasized that the USA should make more investment in infrastructure. So Korean construction industry and then construction-related industries in Korea will have more chances to go to the United States. And another one is that Mr. Trump have emphasized that revitalization of the manufacturing sector in the United States. We still have competitive advantages in the manufacturing sector. In response to those kind of American policy change, definitely we can find some opportunities in the manufacturing sector.
From an economist point of view, though, do you see them as real opportunities? Wouldn't the Trump administration giving these construction projects to American companies?
Well, the competitions will be very serious, but I think money is not everything, but it's something. What I mean is that to make money, we have to try. We have to make trials. And then, as I said before, if the sums increase, definitely it must be very difficult. But if we make every effort, maybe we can gain something more. That's the hope.
Even though there will be numerous new buildings erected in the United States by U.S. construction companies, some basic materials can be imported from South Korea. And as a political scientist, I'd like to point out 3 possibilities that will be very conducive to the revival of the South Korean exports and corporate activities. One is the Xi Jinping government. Xi Jinping seems to have consolidated his power bases and enter into the second phase of his scheduled 10-year tenure. as the top leader of Chinese government. And in the first half, his economic developmental plan did not really take good shape because his priority was not really only on national economic development, but also purging corruptions and taking care of some political competitions. Now he is ready to truly focus on economic matters in the second phase of his tenure. So there will be a good source of a momentum for Northeast Asian economic region. And the second point is the potential restoration of the relationship between the United States and Putin's Russia. The thawing of the U.S.-Russian relations would open up the export of the Russian oil and natural gas.
Right.
And South Korea used to be one of the biggest importers of the Russian natural gas. And the third point is the Abenomics in Japan. As Abenomics hitting the saturation point after 6 years of the experiment, then maybe there's not much upward potential left for the Japanese export, taking advantage of extremely cheap yen. So they may create some opportunities, niche opportunities for South Korean exports.
If I give you one case, cold iron panel have been one of the major exporting items. We have, in the trade with the United States. Of course, but recently, United States government imposed anti-dumping duties on it. But the auto industry, American auto industry, will be revitalized more faster than expectation. Why? Because Mr. Trump, he emphasized that he's going to build a wall along with the borderline with Mexico. Because of that, Hyundai and the many Japanese automakers are really concerned about. That means that they have their factories over there, but to export, their autos from Mexico to the United States is going to be more difficult. That means that by doing so, the American automakers will have chances to revitalize. Right. Then they need more cold iron panel. Then Korean and POSCO will have more chances to increase their exports, while Hyundai will have some more difficulties in their export to the United States.
Right. You have to see the overall
pictures,
right?
Yes.
Well, they do say every crisis presents an opportunity. I guess it is up to us to look for those opportunities. It is time for us to wrap up. Your final thoughts of the week, Professor Shin?
Well, I hope all politicians, regardless their political interest or personal interest, they should put the first priorities on the national interest. By doing so, we can have the more brighter future in Korea.
It is very encouraging that South Korean citizens are awakened to their political rights and engage in participation to make their demands clear to the Blue House. But at the same time, there's a reasons for South Korean citizens to be patient in a good sense, because the current scandal and political turmoil in South Korea are oftentimes compared to the Watergate scandal during the Nixon administration in 1970s in the United States. But compared to the Nixon administration's Watergate scandal, this is far more serious and complicated scandal. And the safety net for the presidency is almost absent in case of President Park Geun-hye. Pardon was almost guaranteed by the Congress and the Vice President, General Ford.
Right.
But Park Geun-hye, as a president, cannot get the assurance by the National Assembly or whoever will be the next president of South Korea. So it stands reason for President Park Geun-hye to be unwilling to just take sweeping measures to help restore the public order in the name of national interest. I'm not defending President Park's action in every sense, but there's a reasons that the current political turmoil takes such a long time.
Patience.
Patience.
Is what
and
you're
we have
calling
to
for.
accept what is a major difference between the two presidential systems between United States and South Korea.
I'm afraid patience is not a virtue that comes easily to Koreans, though, with our pali-pali culture.
Right. That makes us great, but at the same time, it grabs the heels.
Yeah. Well, thank you two very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
That's all for this edition of News Inside. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more next week.